will be an update from Fire Marshal Brian Taylor on the fire at National Salvage and Service Corporation. And then moving on to unfinished business. Number 12 will be a motion to approve a funding method for construction of a 50,000 square foot building at Park East Industrial Park, an appropriate budget amendment. Any questions on that? Motion to, number 13 is a motion to approve the use of the Hosokawa building proceeds towards the construction of a 30,000 square foot building at Park East with the appropriate budget amendment.
Can I make a comment on those two items?
Please do.
We, of course, our original funding plan on that was to actually obtain $2 million loans through Tri-County, and that has not been successful. We have already put those two buildings out to bid. Those bids have come back. Actually, last Wednesday was the 30 days for that bid to expire. We got an extension from the company on that. So we are going to continue to make application to Tri-County, but we felt like we needed to go ahead and move in order to secure that bid amount that we got. The company that won the bid was actually $1 million less than the other two bids. So we felt like we needed to go ahead and move on.
Joe, any idea why Tri-County rejected it?
We are attempting to have a funding mechanism in place going forward to finance these shell buildings. And we wanted to use those dollars from the federal government that comes down through Tri-County. We are using WCDA as the private company that is actually handling all of that. The attorney for Tri-County is concerned that there would be some risk to Tri-County. If they're dealing directly with the county, they feel like there's zero risk. But since we're actually going through WCDA, they feel like there was some risk. And as a result of that, that's the reason the board rejected it.
I reached out to a couple of the board members, and they felt like we could work through the process, but it being a member-owned co-op, that was the reason that they were having concerns about it.
And one last thing I'd say on that, and that is they are actually meeting, I believe, next week again on this matter, and we are actually asking our county manager and the WCDA president to attend to make that presentation to the board to answer any questions they may have.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 15, because it's an economic development project, we'll need a motion to establish a public hearing on March the 7th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. in the Commissioners' Meeting Room in the Wayne County Courthouse Annex to receive public comments regarding an economic development agreement between Wayne County and the Wayne County Development Alliance Incorporated for the construction of two shell buildings at Park East Industrial Park in Goldsboro. And then moving on to the consent agenda, Madam Chair, we have the number 16, the late application for present use value. And then on to number 17 is present use value that's been approved by the tax office. Number 17 is our budget amendments, and I'll turn that over to Mrs. Page.
First budget amendment is for EMS, $84,212.55. This is to anticipate additional user fees and in order for us to pay the fees due to the state. This is for the Medicaid cost settlement report that is required to be paid each year. Your next budget amendment is for social services. They are requesting to reallocate $21,390 from regular salaries and wages to overtime. This is just where they're truing up what their actual costs are for the year before we roll the budget over.
Excuse me, can I go back to the first one? I'm sorry, I was
Yes,
slow
sir.
getting there.
That's okay.
Are we actually paying that out or receiving it?
We are paying it out. We are balancing it with additional revenues that we anticipate receiving. So rather than having to anticipate fund balance usage, we think that the revenues are going to exceed the estimates, so we're anticipating additional user fees to balance that.
All right, I don't want to belabor this, but I want to make sure I understand this.
Yes, sir.
EMS charges for that service and receives dollars from Medicaid. From that amount, the state requires us to take a portion of that and pay back to the state.
Well, what they typically do, and we have this in the health department, and even with a portion of our sales tax, they will typically pay upfront 90% of that amount, but they do what they call a desk audit for the remaining 10%. And so sometimes that means that remaining 10% comes to you, and sometimes that remaining amount goes back to them. So it just kind of depends on how it lands whenever the desk audit is completed.
All right, so it's not a percentage that goes back to the state, it's actually a balancing out
Right.
that particular year.
That's right.
Okay.
And we have it for the health department as well.
Right, okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So the sheriff's office budget amendment is number 331, and that's for $509.83. They've received additional controlled substance tax monies. We have a budget amendment for WCDA for $13,954.97. This is anticipating use of fund balance. It is for an incentive grant that was approved back in 2019. We did not know for sure when they would meet the requirements of that incentive grant, so it was not budgeted. This is the first payment over 10 years, and we will be budgeting the rest of those payments in the actual annual budget ordinance.
Will you always use the fund balance appropriated and paid to?
Yes, ma'am. Because typically, it's going to come from your property tax revenues, and if we had a good feeling that our revenues would exceed budget, we could appropriate those, but I think we're going to be just sliding in under budget on the property tax.
And how much is the city's portion of that?
I don't know about, is it the same? Okay.
I'm sorry?
90% the same that we have.
Thank you.
Okay. Your next budget amendment is for facilities for $6,400. They are requesting to reallocate funds from professional services to capital outlay. And this was a budgeted item, but we are requesting that it be moved to a fixed asset since it's going to be a project. Your next budget amendment is for the sheriff's office for $1,242. This is to anticipate funds received from their calendar sales and calendar ad sales and public donations, and this does go into special program materials for the sheriff's office. You have a budget amendment for animal control for $4,680.01. This is to anticipate additional insurance proceeds. The vehicle was originally thought to be able to be repaired, but they have since totaled it. So this is the remaining money owed to us to replace it. Our next budget amendment is for the sheriff's office for $22,000. We're requesting to reallocate it from overtime to part-time extra help. They do have some vacancies right now in that department, so they are utilizing more of their part-time help than they originally budgeted. We have a budget amendment for the health department totaling $8,600. They are requesting to realign funding. This is the contract between Pitt County and Wayne County Health Department, and specifically it's for the ARPA COVID-19 Regional Public Health Workforce Grant. So these are grant-related items. Your next budget amendment, this is also your last budget amendment, is for $37,669.50, and this is to reallocate funds between another of their grant line items. This is specifically for Healthy Beginnings, and these are all reallocations within that grant. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Number 18 is a motion to establish a public hearing on March 21st to consider the revised Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance and Plan. Barry's here, he can come up and discuss that.
That's a lot of reading in that.
There he is. Good morning.
It's thrilling, too.
Yes, it's very interesting. No, this is a complete rewrite of our ordinance and plan. I will begin by saying that the plan is basically what the state expects us to report on every year, annually to them. So basically, it's education materials, reporting items that we have to send back to them. It's basically what the plan is, but the ordinance itself are the actual rules. The state sets those rules in the state's Neuse River Basin stormwater rules. So we have to match our ordinance. Basically, we have to change our ordinance to match what they have in their rules. So that's basically what we're doing. It took a whole rewrite. We couldn't just do a red line version. But I did include a document that does kind of have a general description of the old rules and then a general description of the new rules. But basically, what it boils down to is now we're going to be looking at built-upon area. So anything greater than 24% built-upon area would require stormwater detention. The nitrogen offset, nutrient offset that required is still at 3.6 pounds per acre per year, so that's not changing. But basically, we had to rewrite our ordinance because there was a lot of language change, reference changes, requirements that we're having to report on, all that's changing. So, but the main rule change is 24% built upon area. So it's going to be, I think, a little bit clearer for developers with that. And so right now, in initial discussions with some engineers, like engineers that work with our program, they're looking forward to this. They feel like this is going to be a little bit easier for them to understand and report these items back to the county. So with that, we do have a deadline of May to have our local program approved. So we do want to go ahead and ask that you hold a public hearing in March. That gives us a little wiggle room in case we need to push things back or make any adjustments. So.
Is the county the only one that has to do this, or does municipalities or other?
No, municipalities and other counties. Basically, the counties that are subject to the rules within the Neuse River Basin all have to change theirs, and the cities, Goldsboro, for example, has to make similar adjustments to their ordinances and plans. So, yeah, it is basically basin-wide for jurisdictions within the basin that are subject to stormwater. There are a few counties, a few towns that are not subject to it, but for the most part, most of them are. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
on the 24% rule, how is that, what is it currently?
Currently, currently, it's more of an well, it's if it's if you're it's a little more difficult. That's why some people are a little more at ease with this new rule. But basically, if it's I believe if it's 10%. That you're increasing your runoff. Basically, you have to run, there's a spreadsheet or a small little form that you have to
So
fill out.
we have a complicated formula now.
It is. It's a formula basically they fill out, and it tells you how much is runoff compared to how much after development versus before, and it's a comparison. Anyway, there's a couple of methods that you can use to run those numbers and so forth, so it's a little more difficult.
Based on like a sliding scale type deal.
It is, yeah. So, but yeah, this 24%, I think, and actually the 24% matches what we have in our watershed ordinance, because our watershed ordinance requires stormwater detention or retention for 24% built upon area as well. So now we don't have two different, I guess, ways of looking at that and requiring stormwater. It kind of matches both. Both will be the same.
And for clarification purposes, as far as with the developers, we really don't have much choice. We've got to align ours with.
We do. That's right.
With the
We
new
have
one.
no
Is that
choice.
correct?
That's right.
Okay.
And this is the part where the program comes into play, right? The new program, or is that something different?
Oh, the new stormwater program? It is. Mm-hmm.
So us and the city would be basically on the same program.
Yeah. The rules are basically the same, and so we'll, the 24% built upon area, all that will be the same. The system that the state's putting in place that we have to use for reporting and that the engineers have to use for reporting, it'll be the same system we use, that they use. Everybody will use the same, including the state. So we'll all be reporting off the same information as well.
So that should streamline the process.
It should. Yep.
Which means it's more efficient, which means it's quicker. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. All right, moving along. Motion to approve farm leases between the city of Goldsboro and the county of Wayne is requested by the city of Goldsboro, subject to approval of the county attorneys. Have you got something on that?
Good morning. As you're aware, we own several properties that the county leases out for local farmers. We do that on a 3-year basis. The city does something similar with city and county-owned properties. And a few weeks ago, their properties were up for renewal. The ones that are county and city-owned, we deferred to the city and allowed them to go through the process to lease those out. So these leases were approved and advertised with the city, and they're just asking for your approval. And then all the rentals from these are split equally between the city and the county. So.
In comparing the rates that the city is receiving on their leases, is it similar to what we're receiving on?
They are. They're actually a little bit higher than what we currently have. And I think that's a reflection of, we bid ours out, I believe 2 years ago, so ours are coming up, and so just higher rates. But,
Well,
yeah, they're comparable.
And land's got something to do with it too, the type of land it's on.
Right.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Motion to approve the transfer of 2 HMGP properties to the state of North Carolina.
I'll go over this one too. So back in 2014, there's 2 properties, and you can see it in your agenda packet. They're on River Road, that's just upriver from Cliffs of the Nukes State Park. Back in 2014, the Board of Commissioners approved conveying those to the NC Park system with the idea, let me back up, these are Hurricane Floyd buyouts, the hazard mitigation grant program that we've owned for 20 plus years. Back in 2014, the board agreed to convey these over to the state so that boaters and kayakers could put their boats in upriver and then boat down to the park. That approval predated North Carolina Emergency Management's approval and FEMA's approval of that. So even though you all approved it, I think it just fell through the cracks and a deed was never executed. The current superintendent with Cliffs of the Neuse contacted me last month about this because he wants to go ahead and get this taken care of because they do want to utilize the small boat ramp that's there. So I contacted North Carolina Emergency Management and figured out what we needed to do. All their approval is in there. All they asked was that the state parks issue another request that we convey the property and that it come back before you to approve that conveyance. So I do one change in talking with Mr. Parker. In your materials, there's a general warranty deed. We would change that to a special warranty deed to the state, but that would be the only change. So, and there's, like I said, there's a current boat ramp there already, so it would work out well for the boaters and for the park.
It's kind of a midpoint between the previous boat ramp on Bill Lane Boulevard, and that was kind of a takeout spot. They try to break the river up into 4 to 6 hour sections, and that was a popular spot to take out anyway, so I think that.
So they've been using it for that purpose.
I would suspect.
That and the highway right away.
We're just now getting around to do the legal work.
So when we convey it, that's theirs from
It's
now on.
theirs, we can transfer it to the state.
And they would still be subject to all the FEMA restrictions of the hazard mitigation grant program, so they couldn't build anything on it. It just stays open for green space for recreational use.
So is the ramp, is it gonna,
It's dirt.
It's
just
dirt.
a dirt ramp. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
okay. Well, Tommy, y'all remember where that's at, so in case, that's a midpoint.
Thank you, Andrew. Motion to approve the use of pyrotechnics at the town of Pikeville on March 21st by 2023 by Hale Artificer. I think this has been approved by the inspections office, just pending your approval for them to proceed.
What
And
are they
that's-
celebrating on March the 21st?
I'm not sure.
A test, I think it's a test, right?
Then that's all under the consent agenda. There's no questions on that.
Which is a good thing.
Under new business, We have our presentation by Finance Director Allison Spade of the quarterly financial statement for the County of Wayne fiscal year 2022-23 through December 31st of 22. Number 23 is a presentation by Finance Director Allison Spade of the quarterly financial statement for Wayne County Tourism Development Authority fiscal year 2022-23 through December 31st of 2022. And then number 24 is the discussion of recognizing and implementing Juneteenth as a paid holiday for Wayne County employees and appropriate budget amendment. And then we got on to county manager's report, Board of Commissioners committee reports, closed session, and then we would ask that we have a luncheon at the Maxwell Center to attend. You can adjourn from there.
So we're just gonna recess here.
Should we recess or recess here?
You can recess to go.
And then adjourn from out there? Yes.
So this is a pretty lengthy agenda. You think we're gonna be able to get through, so we ain't got to come back?
Absolutely.
If it's up to me, it will be on time.
Okay, copy that. So we got closed.
And we do have closed session.
Madam Chair, I move that we go into closed session for the
Purpose is to discuss matters with your counsel to preserve attorney-client privilege.
We need to clear the room, please.
Okay, we have a motion
Yeah.
from Commissioner Goddard, you need to vote, please.
Okay. Let's see, what do we vote?
Mine ain't come up yet.
Yes, yeah, we'll raise our hands on this one. All those in favor of going into closed session?
We're gonna take a short recess now.
All right. And here's your recess for a moment.
We will recess for 5 minutes.